I would like to try to get into one more thing. There's this time, for a while there, I was drinking a lot, and I was kind of like suicidal, and I would walk into bad neighborhoods and stuff like that. And there was these two women there, and they waved me in, so I went in. I was like, well, all right. And then I was really drunk, and I don't know, they were kind of acting weird, and I said, well, do you mind if I lay down on, they said, you can lay down on the floor. I was like, all right. And I was so drunk I didn't care. And I heard like this voice say like I ain't scared, kind of sounded like that. I didn't know like what it was. I was about like kind of halfway out of it, halfway into it. And the woman said, it's all right, it's all right. And I felt something like wet on my face. And then I heard this voice in my head, and it went into my eye. And I heard this voice in my head say, pull it out. And I grabbed it, and I tried to pull it, but it was already around like my retinal nerve. And I said, I'm going to pull my eye out. He said, well, then pull your eye out. And I clenched my eye as hard as I could, and I yanked it, and I pulled it out. And the women said, like, hold him down. And they were on top of me, and I just like pushed them off, and I stood up, and I had this thing like slapping around in my hand, and I just threw it down the hall. It was like wet and cold. And I yelled, and I was like, like I didn't know what was happening. And they just stood back, and I saw this little thing on like the table. It was like a foot high, and it looked like a puppet. And I got real close to it, and it looked like one of these, which they call like Vrill. Robert called them drones. And I guess when you get drone, you're a drone as well. But then also like those working grays, they were called drones. And I guess it pushes out this proboscis or whatever out of its head. And it's like its consciousness, and it can go into your eye and wrap around and inject this fluid into your brain, and it kills you. But then it takes like your body, it takes your consciousness. And they say it takes like weeks to recover from this. But Donald Marshall talks about it. I don't know if you ever heard of him. But yeah, I threw it out, and I ran out, and I was like screaming, because I saw this, and I said, lizard. I said lizards, because I remember the Tibetans used to call them lizards as like an insult. I would say lizards or reptiles in general. And the two women, like kind of like a shared consciousness, said, he knows, like one after another. And I was like, oh, and I just ran out, and I ran out the street, and these people were out in the street because I was yelling. And they said, what is that? I was like, I don't know, there's like a reptile, and it had like eye stalks like a crab, and I was trying to explain it. And I remember Don Marshall said that there's polka dots on the mailboxes of people who have been droned so they can tell each other apart. And I saw polka dots on their mailbox. And I remember when I was in the ship with the Tibetans, the navigator told me, he was the guy I told you looked similar to the guy on the left. He was in the ship with me, and he kind of like stopped, and he said, and he was like, he was like saying, like, pull it out, things like that. So what it was, I was in two different timelines, and when this happened to me down here, he was like synced up to me telepathically enough to where he could realize like I was in danger and I was being threatened of dying. And he was the reason why I just pulled it out. He's the one who woke me up, and he's the one that got me to pull it out. And I think the XO Robert said like Aquino kind of put some. He put some sort of like, I don't know, call on me. He said, but that's the last time he's going to do it. Like, this was almost like a setup. Like, the kind of higher density beings can manipulate lower densities. I remember that. So they can kind of make things happen. They can manipulate our density, like a fourth and a fifth density can manipulate ours. And I remember that. But yeah, that's something I hadn't brought up before. And yeah, that was what it looked like. And it was brown, like a rust color, and it had pincers and stuff like that. But yeah, I saw that.